Hey, what's going on, guys? So, Space Engineers 2 just got another hotfix, and this one is all about making the game feel a lot more stable when you actually boot it up and start playing. The first thing that stands out is the added out of memory detection. That usually tells you the team has seen enough memory related trouble to decide it needs better guardrails in place. So, instead of letting the game stumble into a mess later, it can catch that problem earlier and handle it more cleanly. That is not the kind of change that sounds exciting on a feature list, but in practice, this is the sort of fix that can save a lot of players from those random, frustrating exits back to desktop. And then you look at the rest of the notes, and it's pretty clear this patch is not messing around. There are fixes for a crash in components.ui system component, one in Havoc triggers session component.update triggers, another tied to HTTP connection.chunked encoding read stream, read async core, and even one in HTTP connection pool.connect to TCP host async. So that means they are touching both gameplay systems and the networking side of things, which is usually a sign that crashes were happening in more than one part of the game, not just in one isolated spot. There is also a crash fix during Render 12 device disposal, specifically tied to IDXGI debug report live objects. That sounds very technical because it is, but the practical version is that they are cleaning up graphics and device handling, so the game is less likely to fall over when shutting things down or swapping states in the rendering pipeline. On top of that, they fixed a crash in entity transform functions.getWorldTransform, which is one of those fixes that makes you think about all the moving parts in a game like this, especially when blocks, ships, and objects are constantly being transformed in a 3D world. The voxel-related fixes matter too. They patched a crash in voxel clipmap.work completed or canceled, and another in voxel physics component.update chunk async. In a game like Space Engineers, voxel terrain and physics are a huge part of the experience, so when those systems are having problems, that can absolutely ripple into gameplay. A crash in that area can show up while you are building, mining, moving through terrain, or just loading into a world that is doing a lot behind the scenes. They also fixed a crash in powerable block component.supplied property, which is one of those details that sounds tiny but probably mattered a lot for players building electrical setups and machine chains. And then there is storage managers.transactional file system, plus a crash tied to system collections generic.keynotfound exception, which is the kind of thing that often points to a bad lookup or a missing value that should have been there. Those are the sorts of bugs that can feel random to players because all you know is the game was fine 1 second and gone the next. One of the more important fixes in this update is the startup freeze caused by an armor geometry asynchronous deadlock. That is the kind of issue that can make a game feel broken before you even get to the main menu. So fixing it should make the opening experience much smoother for anyone who was getting stuck while loading in. If you've ever sat there wondering whether the game was frozen or just taking forever, you know how much of a difference that kind of repair can make. So overall, this is not the kind of patch that adds a brand new ship, a feature reveal, or some huge gameplay twist. It is much more practical than that. It is the sort of update that tries to make the whole experience less fragile, less crash prone, and less annoying to deal with. Those fixes across UI, networking, rendering, transforms, voxels, file handling, and startup behavior tell a pretty clear story. The priority here was stability, plain and simple. And that is actually a good sign. A lot of the time, these quieter hotfixes are the ones that make the game feel better day to day, even if they do not sound exciting in a trailer or on a store page. If the game was crashing on load, freezing at startup, or failing in the middle of ordinary systems like UI or physics, then this update is exactly the kind of cleanup pass people were probably hoping for. So yeah, this hotfix is basically the team going through the rough edges and tightening up a bunch of the places where the game could break. Nothing flashy, nothing over the top, just a solid stability pass that should help the game hold together better when you are actually using it.